All right, it is 1:02 p.m. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Eric Bitmanis. I'm the Program Manager for Private Sector Innovation here at Canary. We are recording this presentation, and it will be available on YouTube shortly after the webinar concludes. If you'd like to ask a question during the presentation, please use the Q&A option here in Zoom. We have a couple spots in the presentation where we will address questions, so feel free to write questions in the QA panel at any time, and we'll get to them during those periods. Today is the second webinar in a series of webinars that we're doing in collaboration with Amazon Web Services, otherwise known as AWS. We're extremely excited to be welcoming Andre Tan today, who's a business development associate at AWS Startups, to present today. I'm sure many of you are itching to hear about the fundraising fundamentals for your startup. Before we do, I did want to take a couple minutes to provide a quick overview of the Dare Cloud program for those of you unfamiliar with the program and what it can bring to you and your business. So the DARE program, otherwise known as the Digital Accelerator for Innovation and Research, is a free program offered by Canary, available to entrepreneurs, startups, and small and medium-sized businesses here in Canada. It began as a pilot project in 2011 with the goal to help provide a boost towards commercialization for startups, small and medium-sized enterprises. From those humble beginnings, DARE has now served over 2,000 Canadian entrepreneurs, startups, and SMEs accelerate their product and service development. We're also continually evolving the program to better suit the needs of the entrepreneurs that we serve. We launched our Booster Pack program back in 2019, leveraging the experience of other Canadian entrepreneurs and businesses and distilling it into a single, easy to digest, free package of documentation, resources, and source code so that other Canadian entrepreneurs can take that booster pack and gain a foundational understanding in an emerging technology should they wish to leverage said technology for their own business. And just this past August, we're happy to say that we've been enabling AWS services like Lambda, RDS, and many more to come that can now be used inside the DARE Cloud to accelerate your product or service. We've also increased the monthly spending limit within the DARE Cloud program for participants up to $1,000 a month to be spent on AWS Cloud resources. And when you apply to DARE, you get 1 year of access to these resources, which could save you in total about $12,000 in cloud computing costs as you build, iterate, and develop your next great product or service. We also offer support and a community of entrepreneurs for you to connect with as you progress on your journey. All this is offered completely for free. Canary is a nonprofit that is funded by Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada, otherwise known as ISED, and we're here to help serve you on your way to achieving your business goals. Now, the other question is, are you eligible for the DARE program? I can almost certainly assure that you are. If you are a business based in Canada, employ less than 500 employees, and are developing a product that you're looking to commercialize, then you're eligible for the DARE Cloud program. There's a very easy program to join. The application form takes about 5 minutes to complete, followed by 3 to 5 business days of processing time on our side. And before you know it, you'll have access to your DARE resources. If this sounds interesting to you, I highly suggest checking out canary.ca/cloud after the webinar today to see how the program can help you on your development journey. And with that said, I'd like to pass the digital microphone over to Andre Tan. Andre is the Business Development Associate at AWS Startups, an area of AWS responsible for aiding over 280,000 startups globally. So please welcome Andre.
Thank you, Eric. So I get the mic over from you, the digital mic here. And yeah, glad to meet everybody today. It's exciting for me to be with all of you today. And I would like to share what I learned, what my mistakes are when I was fundraising myself for my previous startups. And yeah, excited to help and guide all of you through this journey. So let me quickly share my screen here so I can get things underway. Give me 1 second. All right, should be good. All right, just like what Eric was mentioning, my name is Andre. I'm part of the AWS Startups team. We are consisting of a group of founders, ex-early team members across different sectors, different spectrums, and different stage. So you have people like myself who have raised the seed round, and you also have people that have raised their Series A and Series B and Series C as part of the team. So it's a very diverse team, and we look after globally about 280,000 plus startups across the world, and super excited to help early stage startup because that's where a lot of the future, big startups that you see these days, like Airbnb or Uber or any other startup that you might have heard or used in your daily life comes from, right? We work with them early when they were still 2 or 3 people, or when they were still solo founders even, and help to prioritize them along the way. Okay, so my scope at AWS Startup is to help the seed stage startup. So I manage relationship between AWS and the seed stage venture capital in Canada and partially in the US as well. And the beauty of that is I get to see and talk with a lot of the venture capital, getting their insight on what the quality of the founders that they've been seeing, is it increasing, is it decreasing, and what are happening in the market. So these insights are part of that discovery process that I learned from the venture side as well in my role at AWS. Okay. All right. So to kick things off here, I know that a lot of you probably are turning off your camera right now, but if you can just quickly put an icon of a thumbs up in Zoom here, and how many of you are actually fundraising right now? I want to just to see the room here. All right. See Chris and Dennis, thank you. Anybody else are fundraising actively right now? No? Okay. No worries. I will try my best to give all my secret sauce and my guidance through this process. All right. So thanks, Dennis and Chris. So I'd like to start with this notion of why, right? Why are you fundraising for your startup? Is it because everybody else in the startup land does it? Is it because there's a TechCrunch articles and Beta Kits articles about startups becoming unicorn, and you wanted to follow the same track, right? So this is a very fundamental question, because as you build your business, and depending on the type of business that you are building, not all types of startups or not all type of business need external capital right away to grow your business, right? So the first question before you embark on this journey is to ask yourself, why are you fundraising? And do you actually need to fundraise to grow this business? Okay. The second point I want to make here is about core values. So what is your core values as a founder? And this is more of a self-reflection exercise that you have to do in the beginning, because your core value, as you embark on this journey, will be tested again and again and again, not only your persistence, but also your core values. So what is your core value? What do you really stand up for when you decided to build this business? And the last thing to think about before you start to do any work on the fundraising is the problem and the founder fit, right? So why do you choose this problem? Is this a problem that really bugs you because of, it inhibits you from doing something that you are doing every day? Is it limiting your productivity and you wish there was a solution for it and there is none? So what is it that causes you to decide to embark on the journey to solve this problem for the world? Okay, so these are the three things that sometimes we forget to ask, and myself included, when I was doing my own startups or brewing an idea. I tend to fall in love with the solution more than the actual problem. That is a problem, because you're not actually optimizing your business to solve a problem. You're just optimizing the product or the solutions. Okay, and that's going to make you do a lot of detour later on, or that's going to confuse maybe investors that you're talking to. So it's important to understand some of these fundamental questions before you even start to do anything about fundraising. Okay. And then once you've got the fundamental pretty much covered. You decide whether you wanted to build this on your own or you wanted to have a team of co-founders to build, right? And this is where a lot of these factors that you already know in terms of experience, complementary skills, ability to scale, and coachability is going to be important. To have or to call somebody as your co-founder, there is a lot of weight and there's a lot of responsibility. Sharing my experience with my first startup, I met my co-founders during a startup weekend event where she was pitching an idea that I think, makes really good sense. And I have the same problem myself, and it's about influencer marketing in the early days. And I decided to join her team. We started working together with my other co-founder, CTO. The team was about 8 people during the startup weekend. And then afterward, we met and, really asked the questions of who really care about this problem and, what experience can you bring on the table? And from 8 becomes, 6 over the next 1 month, and then becomes 3 after 2 months, right? And a lot of the people are self-selecting themselves out because we have an open communication about what how each of us are going to bring value to the table and how much commitment that this startup or this idea, it wasn't even a startup back then, it was still an idea that we worked on for 8 months until we decided to incorporate the company, to really understand what is the motivation behind, right? And the 3 of us, me and my CTO and my CEO, I'm the sort of the operations guy here, we have complementary skills because we came from different background, and we also have complementary personality in which I tend to be more pessimistic, and I tend to be more challenging on the data side of things and whether making sure that this is a solid ground or not, while my CTO looks at it from, can we actually build this? And then my CEO is the dreamer, right? She dreams about, this is the vision, this is what we need to achieve. And then we both are, circulating and challenging each other on how actually implementable that idea. So that is really how we worked really well together, to the point that my co-founder from my first startup here, Jennifer, is actually the one who brought me into AWS startups in the first place. So we managed to build a very strong relationship even beyond the startup life itself. And scalability here, this is what the point that a lot of the VCs have mentioned to me is that I need to see that the founders, the co-founding team, or even the early team members here can scale with the business. And what it means is that they need to be able to not only take on more responsibility, but also grow as the business scale, right? So they will be looking for that potential. And if you have managed a team before in your previous role or in your previous life as a non-founder, they look after that, because that is one of the evidence that you can provide to them that shows that, hey, you can scale and you can lead a team and you can drive and motivate team towards a common goal here. And coachability. This is also a big thing that the VCs will be looking at when they wanted to work with founders or any investors at all. Think about the investor relationship with the founders or with your company as a long-term relationship. A typical age of a venture capital fund is typically at least 5 to 8 years and sometimes 10 years before the fund gets distributed back to the investors or the LPs. And in that sense, the investors have to be able to work with you throughout these time, the typical time that it takes to for a company to exit. And you need to be able, or they need to also be able to be coachable, right, on both sides. And you need to be able to work well with one another. So the coachability part is very crucial. And any conversations that you have with the investors, they're always having this at the back of their mind. So be open to the feedback. You don't have to take all of their feedback, and sometimes too much feedback is not good, but you have to be respectful and you have to be able to say that, hey, this is great feedback, I will test it or I will not test it because of XYZ, right? Rather than just brushing the feedback off. Okay, so now you have a strong background about why you wanted to do your startup, and you have assembled a team, and then you came to, okay, how much do I actually need, and I wanted to raise, right? If you come to that decision, then the two things that I would like to sort of challenge you with is, one, what is the minimum viable raise here, right? Like, what are the next milestone that you're trying to achieve, and how much money do you actually need to hit that milestone? Sharing my personal experience building MuseFi, my influencer marketing startup, we haven't built a single code until we know that, hey, there is a market need for this. And so how do we hack that? How do we hack that is that we are offering, by the way, we're offering a service to match the influencer, the social media influencers, the Instagrammers with the brands. So what we do is we reach out to the brands and we say, hey, we think that these influencers are the right influencers to grow your brand on a PDF. And asking them, if you'd like, this is what we can do. We can match make you two, and we can make sure that there is transparency and objectivity. And if there's anything wrong, we'll be the one that's kind of manage it, right? And we put that all into a PDF with nice photos. And my CEO co-founder is very good at graphics as well, so that's kind of helpful. And we were able to get brands to pay for the service, and without even my CTO building anything on the on our site, or even before our website is up. So that is that's available to you. Like, I think Eric mentioned a good one. Like, for example, with the cloud, like, we work together with you, and we can get you $1,000 a month to help with your initial ramp up, for example. And then you have all the grants as well. It's available, the Shred program in Canada, and various other that we took advantage. We got Shred credits, and we got a lot of the grants by working with our NRC representatives as well. So take advantage of that. That is the best source of capital. It's non-dilutive, and you can get it through your merit and through basically understanding how that program can help you, right? You just have to be able to write a good business case as well for that source of grants, okay? Okay, now the question I think everybody asks is like, how do you build a good pitch deck? My thoughts after about 10 years in the startup industry is that good is very relative, right? Good means that you need to know your audience. Who are you pitching to? And do you always need a pitch deck to pitch investors? I would say not at the beginning. At the beginning, it's about selling your idea. It's about storytelling. It's about making sure that you can have what you're trying to build in a very succinct way that you can say it while you're walking together, where you're meeting somebody on a networking event, or even people say elevator pitch. Yes, sounds cliche, but it is very important for you to be able to say in less than 3 to 4 sentences about what you do. The other thing that I learned is something to do with attention span. So investors are bombarded with inbound, bombarded with introductions, bombarded with a lot of things throughout their day. And they do have the tendency to have very little time to allocate to read all the things that they got sent to. So you have to be very, very clear and simple in terms of messaging what your company is all about, and why they should care about you and your company, right? So I got this experience from working with the VCs, because they told me that to get my attention, I need a very simple blurb, right? 3, 4 sentences about what the company does, and then what are the tractions that they're really proud of. That gets my attention. I would never have the time to review a pitch deck on the first touch or first interaction, and I'm not going to spend that time. This has been a common feedback that I've been getting from a lot of VCs. The other tricks that I learned and that I wanted to share with you is that a lot of the VCs are, a lot of more established investors, beyond the angel investors, they have an analyst team. So the analyst team will be the one that they would, send over the materials to, and they will be the one that asks you more questions about things. So the more that you shared in the beginning, I think the more bottleneck the process becomes, rather than, you start to share a little bit more and more and more as you get to know them as well, right? Because remember, it's about matchmaking, as I mentioned to you before. They will assess you and you will assess them as well, right? Whether you as a startup founder and the investors are going to be a good long-term, it would be a good long-term partner at the end of the day. How do you pick investors, and how do you decide which one is good for you? Just like when you're building your ideal customer profile, it's very important to understand and have that ideal investor profile, right? So who are the investors that are specific to your field and specific to your industry that can add a lot of value beyond just the money itself? In the beginning, when you're raising friends and family, you would tend to not to look into this much deeper, and that's fine, because you need the capital off the ground, and you need the initial 100K, 200K of capital to get things off the ground, and to have that a little bit of a runway, right? A couple of months of runway, and that's fine. But as you raise your next angel round, or you wanted to raise from a small pre-seed fund or pre-seed round, it's very important to start thinking about what are the value that they're bringing on a table beyond just the capital, and research about them. I can't, I can't tell how important it is to know which investors that are investing only in specific field. For example, if you are a clean tech startup and you would like to raise from clean tech investors, then you have to know who are the clean tech investors that are investing in the space, right? Don't reach out to B2B or D2C or direct to consumer funds, because they are really different customer. They're not gonna invest in anything to do with clean tech, for example, and vice versa, right? So know your investors really well, research about them. The more that you can show that you have done your due diligence about them when you are talking to them and when you are conversing with them, the better it is, because it's part of the long-term relationship building. Okay. The other two things here is about building the relationship early and getting the warm intro. I got an advice from our advisor when I was doing the startup together. We got an advice that, hey, you ask for advice and sometimes you will get money, and you ask for money and sometimes you'll get advice, right? So it's important to, the point of that is, you need to be able to start building those relationships, start to know who's the people that are in this industry, and start to build relationship with them early. And you can be frank to them and say, hey, I am not in your target market yet, or I'm not in your stage yet, because a lot of investors also invest based on stage, but I'd like to get a quick time with you, a 15-minute time with you, or 10-minute time with you, to get feedback on what I'm building, right? So that is one of the good way to get advice, and people are not feeling that they're pressured to say yes or no, or because people don't like to be put on the spot, right? That's just the general human nature. The warm intro is very important. The latest studies that I just got this week saying that in 2024, about 54% of investors expect inbound deals to come their way. So if you have to compete with inbound deals, you are already sort of like behind in terms of the pecking order. So try to see who are the other folks that are within the investor network that you wanted to reach, that you can actually have access to, and try to get an intro from these folks, because the warm intro will separate you. Will not guarantee that you will get a time with the ventures, but at the very least you will have a little bit more probability to be heard. Okay. Pitching the investors. Again, start with the very simple, start with the why, really dive deep on the problem, get the investor to understand what the problem and how big the problem that you're trying to solve, and be clear with your next milestone, right? And how are you testing the problem? What are your hypotheses, and how is it with your early traction that you're able to say, yes, this is a problem worth solving, and there's actually big market, unserved market, that this problem is occurring across different sectors or different geography or even different industry. And this is what I wanted to do with this fund, right? And this is why I'm talking to you, Mr. or Mrs. Investors. Okay. And again, be open to feedback. They will assess you the moment you start talking to them, the moment you start to pitch with them. And you need to show that you're also coachable and open to receiving feedback. Fundraising takes time. When I raised my pre-seed round, it took us a good 4 or 5 months to complete the round. And then when I did my seed round for my second startup, it took us about 6 months to complete the round. And in today's age, even when the capital is more expensive, as you can tell with the slowdown in the overall venture market, it will take even more time to complete a fundraising because you're competing against a fixed amount or declining amount of capital, right? That are hugely deployed in the 2021, 2020 during the almost free money COVID era. So understand, how would this impact your business? Can you still run your business without much disruption if you are focusing your time on fundraising, right? So pace yourself as you go through this process. People say that fundraising is a full-time role, and I think that's completely correct. Like, it just takes a lot of bandwidth from you mentally and also in terms of your ability to do anything else for your business outside of fundraising. So this will take a lot of your time, and you need to be able to ensure that not only that you have a buffer for your business, right? A good runway for your business, for your current burn, but also for yourself mentally as founders. Because at the end of the day, the company is you. The company in the early days are you and your early team members. So you need to be able to take care yourself first. The other thing that I mentioned to a lot of founders is to stay organized. And what I meant by this on a practical level is to have a system where you are tracking the funnel of the investors that you're talking to, either through a CRM. There's a lot of free CRM out there, like HubSpot or any other ones that you might have been using. What you want to do is you want to track your funnel. And why is that important? Because you want to know, out of 10 investors that you talk to, what is the typical good hit rate that you can get, right? Like, with your own experience and your own ability to pitch, like how many of that turns into an actual meeting? And if you work the math backward, you wanted to get 10 checks from 10 people, 200,000 each, for example, for a $2 million raise. In order to get 10 people to say yes and to give you that $200,000 check, how many investors do you need to talk to, right? So you can sort of work your math backward. For me personally, I'd like to assign a more worst case probability of low conversion. So in my case, when I was doing it, I put a 5 to 10% probability that out of 10 people that I even get to talk to, I will close one, or half, or best case scenario, maybe 15%, right? So that's for me. You would have your own sort of numbers based on doing it, but you can't get to that if you don't track. If you just blast investors and just like, okay, I'm just gonna spray and pray and let people who are attracted to me get back to me, and you won't get a lot of traction. And after 3 to 4 months, trust me, you'll be very frustrated with the whole fundraising thing because you feel that you don't have any traction. Again, it's a marathon. You will have traction. If a VC told you, or an investor or an angel investor told you no, that's better than them leaving you hanging, right? So to get a no, that's great that you can mark them off as a no, and then you can start even ask the next question, which is no forever, or no because I'm too early, or what. Then if you can diagnose that, you can put them into a different buckets in your CRM funnel. So that would be the beauty of tracking. The other thing is to continuously optimize. So get the feedback, like what is unclear about your pitch, right? Like ask the friendlies and people that introduce you, like, hey, give me an honest feedback. What do you think about the way I pitch? What do you think about my messaging? Is there something that I can improve here, right? Because that's how you improve. Every single thing that you can improve, if you take it into account and accumulate that, that would be a huge improvement over time. Okay. So data-driven approach, continuing a team of staying organized. A lot of the investors that I talk to are sometimes confused when a startup pitches an interesting idea, because yes, they get the problem, they understand how that problem is bugging people, but they don't really understand how you came up with the market size and what are the assumptions that you're using and how do you came up with that comparables. And this is typically not the first meeting or not the second meeting, but maybe when you are going through a due diligence process. So how do you overcome this? The team here that I would like to leave you with is try to be very simple, while at the same time, back your simple assumptions with data, right? So when you're talking about market size, a typical mistake that I've seen founders did is they just include a lot of things that a lot of the market that they're not really targeting as even part of their SOM, right? You heard the terms of TAM, SAM, and SOM. So for the SOM, the serviceable obtainable market, even people are including market that they're not solving. So when an investors poke in a little bit with a question of, are you going to serve that market in the next 2-3 years? And then when the founder says no, then the investors are not buying the market size right away, right? Because you already are overvaluing that market size that you're trying to hit. So be very, I guess, persistent in terms of challenging your own assumption. Hey, this is the actual market that I'm targeting, and this is the market size. In the next 2 years, this is the market that I'm looking to get most market share in, and in the next 5 to 10 years, that's going to be a different types of market. But be very clear on what that next milestone and what the funding will be able to get you to that milestone, right? And that's going to be making your story, coming back to the storytelling messaging that I mentioned before, more believable and more backable with the assumptions that you provide. The other thing is about comparables. If you are in the market or in an industry where you have seen that there is a lot of transactions being done, and what I meant by transaction is that there is company that getting bought out or company that are getting M&A or mergers and acquisitions throughout the startup life cycle, you need to be able to also come up with that stories, because that stories also left a good analogy of how and how they can envision that you can make money for them, right? From an exit perspective. The moment that you are pitching, and this is one of the other things that the VC told me as an insider, the thing is that the moment that they see you and they met you for the first time as a founder, they already start thinking about how does an exit looks like for this company, right? So they start with an end, and then you are sort of like trying to justify your way with the means to an end. But they need to be able to also be convinced that the end here, the end scenario here that you're presenting to them, or that when they ask you about how do you see yourself, exiting, or you're thinking about exiting the business, this is one of the test way for them to really understand what is your exit strategy and how are you going to make money at the end for them, right? Because that's the essence of them investing in you. And that's pretty much what I have for the presentation today. I hope that is helpful, and I'm more than happy to field any questions that you have for me.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Andrew. That was a wealth of knowledge just on display there. How many times actually have you been going through like seed round or been seeking investment?
Yeah, so I did two startups. So one,
Mm.
unfortunately, after raising seed round, we have to close because of various factors. And the second one, we actually completed a seed round, and then company was recently acquired. So I'm happy for that one. But along the way, I've helped more than 50, 60 startups through my different roles in before
Wow.
Amazon, raising capital. So that's sort of like what I try to share as much knowledge as I can from that
Mhm.
experience.
You've definitely seen much more than many people have than I would say in a lifetime. That's amazing. While we wait for some other questions to come in, please use the Q&A panel below. I did have a question pop in my mind while we wait for those questions. I'm curious as when you're looking at evaluating maybe specific investors, maybe in a given field or a given technology, are there other factors that you're considering as you're evaluating, like, oh, this would be the investor I'm going to pursue the most, or the investor I will pursue first, and what kind of factors you're looking for there when evaluating them?
That's a very good question. Typically, when it depends on the industry itself, if the industry is quite already matured or not. If the industry has a few players already, just give you an example, maybe it's a B2B, tooling tool to help developers build faster, more efficient. There are already a lot of companies that are doing that types of work with developers. So the first thing that I would go is I would look into who are the players in the industry. Maybe they're not competing with me directly, and maybe they are. And I wanted to know who are their investors. So I would start with that, and that give me an idea of, hey, these lists of investors like to invest in B2B developer tooling, for example. And similarly with the clean tech space, I think same thing, like who are the clean tech startups that are doing things in Canada, and they're building things involving water or mining or energy, and who are the backers of these startups. So that would be a way that I would kind of use. The other thing is network with other founders like there are in the industry. They have the most insight. If you have been a Series A founder, if you know anybody that has raised their Series A or even raised their seed, they have done that and did the journey. So there would be a wealth of resources in terms of who's actively investing, who's not actively investing. One caveat is that I heard that a lot of the founders, myself included, wasn't really aware, is that a lot of the venture capital also works like a startup. They also fundraise. They need to fundraise in order to fund their operations and pay their team. And because their investment horizon is long. Like I said, each fund would take about 5 to 7 years. So they need to continuously raise funding, hopefully bigger and bigger, so that they can grow their team and grow their impact and join the next round of investment for the startups that they successfully back or on the way to become the next great thing. So understanding the investors that are active or have capital to deploy versus not is also very important. And I think these days you can have many resources, PitchBook, Crunchbase. There's all these different tools that you need to spend time on to understand who's who and who has money and who has not.
So research is very important, especially in a data-driven approach. I did like your point on the recording the various data points for when you are pitching and you're actively recording if can I come back again or not. But we do have some questions that have come in while you were answering my question. And so
Yep.
the very first question is from Jim, who has a startup that is for cancer treatment. So we're looking in healthcare here, and he can't seem to find any grants or funding. And he asking, can you help? So I'm guessing what Jim's kind of looking for, where he can go to begin looking at what grants and funding might be applicable to him in healthcare.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not a specific expert at any given like sectors. Just to wanted to be clear, I built a B2B SaaS startups, and then the second one is also B2B. So I wanted to make sure I qualify for that. Uh, my exposure to healthcare and my limited knowledge, I think a good starting point would be, you know, the federal government has a very excellent, NRC IRAP coverage, ITA, that's what they call, across the country. And a lot of these ITAs are specifics as well to particular sectors such as healthcare or, clean tech or something else. So I would start with that. Try to find out who's the NRC IRAP ITA in your geographic area, Jim, and trying to get that person to become, once you are accepted into their portfolio, they will help you navigate the different various streams on the grant side of things. On the investor side of things, I think this is where you need to dive deeper in terms of research, in terms of who is the healthcare VCs or healthcare investors that are active. And I wouldn't be surprised if most of the funds are going to be in the US, just because the nature of like the size of our market. So I would start with that. And again, I would start with who are the other cancer treatment startups that are working in this specific area. I think with a lot of the AI trend that are happening these days, there's a lot of implementation on AI on to help cancer diagnostic and cancer research faster. So try to look into that a little bit more and see who's the startup that are pioneering ways around that.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I hope that answers your question, Jim. If not, please come back to us with another one. The next question we do have is from Carrie, who says, Dear Andrew, thank you very much for your presentation. They are developing an AI application based on large language model like ChatGPT and are wondering where and how they can find angel investors in their field.
Well, I can tell you that if you build anything with AI these days, it's going to get investors to be like, all right, like tell me more, right? So the fact that you're building tooling within the AI application, depending on what you're trying to do, Carrie, are you on the modeling tuner or modeling, you're working to improve the existing model, or you're going to be the user side of things where you use the existing model and then you apply it for day-to-day use. Depending on that, there's interest from investors, I can tell you for sure. In terms of how can you find angel investors in your field, I'm not sure where are you located, but here, in BC, for example, and I'm sure in the same thing with the other province as well, is that there's also always a local angel group. So in BC, there's what's called VanTech, Vancouver Angel networking group, where we do monthly pitches where startups get featured, apply, and get featured on these angel presentations. I think that's going to be a good starting point for you to sort of like find the angel investors. The other starting point is if you wanted to have a more guided approach in terms of building your business, you can check out like incubators and accelerators as well across the country. There are, the Techstars of the world, the CDL or Creative Destruction Lab of the world that will help you kind of like frame your idea and work with you in a more methodical way, right? And at the end of the day, the beauty about that program is that there's a demo day, and the demo day is, they will have tons of investors in the room that is excited to hear the latest and greatest companies that are coming out from that batch. So I think that would be another good one as well to network with the investors.
Thank you for that, Andrew. Carrie did provide a little bit more information. They are in Vancouver.
Great.
And on the user side. So I saw the Vancouver thing come in. I'm like, oh, that's great. So it's Van Track is what you were mentioning?
Happy to chat with you. Yeah, happy to chat with you, Carrie. It's closer than I think you are. And definitely happy to connect with you. And yeah, check out VanTech as well in the meantime before we connect.
Carrie's wondering if you are in BC, which Andrew definitely is, and right in Vancouver. And I'll let you guys run the connection side of things. There we go. Perfect. We have a couple other questions that have come in from Anka. They are wondering if the video will be shared. Yes, the video will be shared with them, not to worry. After the presentation, we can arrange for slides to be shared as well, if you prefer that. And then we had an answer come in, looks like from Chris, who was answering Jim's question from earlier. Okay.
Awesome.
So Chris mentions that David tracks grants from sources across Canada. David also offers paid course how to apply for grants. So David's profile, so albertabusinessgrants.ca, something for you to possibly check out, Jim. It seems to be a spot where you might be able to find some help when looking for grants, especially for healthcare.
Yeah, I wanted to add a quick story around grants and
Mm.
SR&ED. So we work with our NRC IRAP ITA, the contact person basically, and the contact person was very resourceful, and they were able to point us out to the different various internal programs even before the programs are launched. Sometimes, like a couple months, just be ready for it, and have the data to prove it. So that's really helpful. You build relationship over time. When we were doing SR&ED claims, this is where your skill as an entrepreneur and being resourceful is truly tested. You have different options, right? You can file for the SR&ED if you're eligible for a SR&ED through contractors or consultants, or you can write yourself, but then you don't know whether you can really get that claims or not. So as a founder, I found ways to get mutual value. One of the people who help us with the SR&ED writing, my CTO was helping him with coding and like just overall architecture review in exchange for SR&ED write up. So find ways that you can really use your skill, help others, and then other will help you as well, right? That was an interesting barter. Other than exchanging office chairs with beer cake, for example, that's another one that I kind of have done in the past. So be resourceful, look into the network that you have, and find people from there that you can add value to their what they're doing, as well as vice versa.
Cool, like a skill swap. That is really cool.
Yeah.
And so Jim asked a question, asked if that information can be forwarded to him. Yes, Jim, we can definitely hook you up with that information after the webinar today, not to worry. I did actually have another question that popped up while we wait for a couple more to come in. As you were speaking, you mentioned how investors are very tuned into AI at the moment. Are there other sectors that you are seeing investors be particularly active in?
I think a lot of the clean tech investors and a lot of the investment around healthcare has always been there. They're just not like, as exciting headline click,
Mm,
getting a lot of clicks versus AI. So I would say healthcare, there's a consistent investment in this area because this is a huge problem that we all in North America is facing with the generational like demographic and stuff happening. So healthcare and clean tech has always been a consistent theme across the board. Now I do know that there are less and less investment going into Web3, as we all kind of know. So that's also a cyclical change in pattern. What my prediction is for 2024 is that we are starting to maybe see a cleanup a little bit in terms
mm,
of the AI startups, right? Like I see a lot of companies rebranding themselves as AI, whether they were doing Web3 before, now they're doing
mm,
AI. I was like, what are you trying to do? You're an AI powered blockchain platform
mm,
now, right? Like that, again, coming back to the problem and founder fit, right? Like you're not just chasing trends. If you are deciding to build something on AI, you better be very, very sure that this is a problem and the AI is just a means to solve, right? But it's not, the AI is not the problem, right? So you have to be very deep in terms of knowing what to build. And in 2024, we're going to see by the end of the year companies that are dropping off because they're not actually building something that people will use beyond the cool factors. So if you're building
mm,
something that people say to you it's cool, and a lot of cool in like people's feedback, you'd be very worry about that because um yeah, cool sometimes can't translate into customers, right? And at the end of the day, in order to grow, you need to solve real problem and you need to have people pay for your product or
mm,
services.
mm. Oh, we have one question that have come in. I think this will be one of our final questions that we do take for today. So thank you very much for your time, Andrew. So we have a question from Doug. They are in the drone business, primarily drones with long flight duration for drone delivery. Are you aware of investor sources that are a good fit for them? So they are looking for investor sources for the drone industry, which I think might go back to a couple of the answers you have provided already involving Crunchbase, but I'll let you field this one.
Yeah, so the drone industry, like I think can be fitting under sort of like the B2B. Like if you are building softwares or you're building solutions, then drone is just a means to an end. For example, I see a lot of startups that are using drones to review the uh, landscaping or the topography of a particular farm or agricultural ag tech applications, then you would fit under the B2B SaaS platform, right? If you are building the drone itself, then it's a whole different ball game because it's a hardware based business, and typically there's only maybe less investors that are interested in hardware based business. And that's also the thing that I noticed more and more is that know your investors really well. Like some investors are only purely software, purely SaaS, right? And some investors are open to do hardware based, have some software components, right? So really understanding and getting example from startups that have done what you're trying to do in similar fashion, not entirely the same thing that you're trying to do, and understand who are backing them or have they been even backed by any investors. I think that would be my first starting point, because that's going to lead you into the path of discovery from then on.
Very much for the answer there, Andrew. We have time for one more question. If anyone has any burning questions they'd like to ask before we adjourn today. There we are. Doug's answering saying thank you. Perfect. Well, happy to help there, Doug. And seeing some thank yous come in here. So I think we will be wrapping up today. I would like to very much thank Andrew for taking the time today to not only share his wealth of knowledge, but also answer these great questions that we had coming in. And thank you to the audience for sitting down and interacting with us today. We hope you took some value from today's webinar.
Yeah.
Any final
Thank you,
words you'd like to
everybody.
share, Andrew? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Eric, thank you for the opportunity. I'm always passionate about this because I am, I am, ex-founder myself now, joining, a big company like Amazon and AWS, and I would like to continue be very close to the founders. So if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to Eric, and would be more than happy to provide you guidance. And yeah, all the best for everything, and thank you again for hosting this webinar, Eric.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much, everyone, for attending. We'll see you all later. And I hope you all have a great day. And yeah, have a fantastic rest of your Thursday. See you. Goodbye.